Record. And hello all, and welcome to this edition of the Leadership Fitness Camp. It's George Anastasopoulos here with you today, and today's webinar fitness camp is based on the topic of the power of acknowledgement. And just like this young man is crying out to acknowledge me, for goodness sakes, we all feel the need and want the need and have the need to be acknowledged, so that we are recognized, that we are appreciated, and that we are in fact seen as being valuable contributors in all that we are doing. And so on that topic, let's take a look at what the power of acknowledgement is all about. And we'll start with a Yogi Berra quote. Yogi Berra, famous for his oddities in terms of the quotes that he shared. This one in particular, you can observe a lot just by watching. Well, there's no way we're going to acknowledge anything or do any of the things that are part of today's Leadership Fitness Camp without paying attention and just by watching. Yogi Berra, thank you for that. Our objective, so let's just jump right into it. The objective of today's camp, very simply, is to simply and effectively build others' awareness and performance. This is absolutely a crucial camp for those of you going through the Leadership Fitness Camp process, because it deals with acknowledgement and is absolutely vital for leaders. And let me show you, as most camps ought to do, the three areas of topics that are on our agenda here today that I'm going to cover. And it starts with whales. Well, actually, it doesn't start with whales. It starts with a whale story. Those of you who have children, who have taken your children to Marineland or SeaWorld or some other such park where there are large aquatic animals such as this killer whale doing stunts and jumping over, in this case, as you can see, a bar suspended some 4 feet above the water. You'll be familiar with this. And those of you who don't have little children and haven't taken your children to a park like this, you'll probably remember your parents taking you to a park like this and enjoying a show like this. So the question is, how do they train this killer whales in general, to jump over a bar suspended 3 feet above the water? Especially when this is behavior, number one, that's not common in the wild. Number two, they haven't seen it because it's, well, not common in the wild. And number three, the trainers don't speak whale. So how do they train these animals to do these things like this? Uncommon behavior that's never been seen by people where the language is a bit of a barrier. Well, here's how they go about doing it. What ends up happening is they suspend this bar, which is currently, as you can see, some 4 feet above the water. They start off by suspending the bar roughly a dozen feet below the surface. And the whale is minding its own business, swimming around, and every now and again, accidentally, swims over the bar. And when it swims over the bar, the trainers make a fuss at the edge of the pool. The whale goes to investigate, and the trainers give it a fish and a pat on the head. Now, the whale is an intelligent creature, and after a short period of time of this kind of activity, it comes to realize that, hey, he's got a good gig going. Every time he swims over the bar, he gets some food, he gets a little love, it's all good. But you see, the trainers gradually, slowly, over time, raise the bar 11 feet underwater, 10 feet underwater, 9 feet underwater. You get the point. And as it gets closer to the surface, the whale has to work a little harder to gain the momentum needed to go over the bar as the bar reaches the surface, because now it has to break the surface during its jump. Pretty soon it's 6 inches above the water, and the whale has to generate more momentum, but it's learned how to do this thing now, and so jumps a little bit above the water. Still not a big deal. It's only 6 inches. Soon it's a foot above the water. You get the point. And so it's through this gradual process, and each time the whale is being acknowledged with a form of material reward, which is food, as well as emotional reward, which is affection. And so pretty soon, after a period of training, the whale has now reached a point where it is generating a ton of momentum underwater, swimming vigorously in order to leap above the water some 4 feet and over this bar suspended above the surface, and immediately swims over to the trainers, where it receives its acknowledgement in the form of food and affection. Now, in terms of real-life human beings, it might be a little difficult to show things like affection at work, especially if you wanted to hand out acknowledgments in the form of a hug to everybody who actually went off to accomplish something. But nevertheless, acknowledgments can be done in a variety of different ways, and I'm going to show you how that happens right away. By the way, if you're wondering if this works on more than just whales, it works on people too. And if you get the chance, go to this website. It's a YouTube video. I think you're going to enjoy this because it'll illustrate how a very poor performer can become a very average performer almost immediately, and how an exceptional performer, excuse me, how a very poor performer can become an average performer through the power of acknowledgement, and how an exceptional performer can go to becoming a very average performer through the power of discouragement. You're welcome to watch this YouTube video. Please enjoy. And so I acknowledge you. How do I acknowledge you? This is the process of acknowledgement. It's called the double ABC of acknowledgement, AABC, and it contains 4 elements. First thing we do is we acknowledge the accomplishment, by the way, and the failures, because ignoring them means ignoring important stuff. But we acknowledge the accomplishment in this exercise. So, hey, want to acknowledge you and congratulations on hitting your numbers this month. That's an acknowledgement of the accomplishment. Second thing we do is we acknowledge the actions that led to the accomplishment. So what they physically did to accomplish what they accomplished. The third thing we acknowledge is the behaviors, the strengths, the values that they brought to the party that made the actions possible, that achieved the accomplishments that they actually achieved. And the last thing we acknowledge, which is the C, is we acknowledge the challenge that the employee or the other party faced while actually accomplishing what they accomplished. And so what does this all mean? If I were to give you an example, it might look something like this. So, okay, listen, congratulations on hitting your stretch targets. That's the acknowledgement of the accomplishment. By concentrating on value add and benefits, that's an acknowledgement of the action. You showed determination, consistency, and honesty. That's an acknowledgement of the behaviors, despite competitive price cutting, which is an acknowledgement of the challenges. Now, take a look at that one more time and read it yourself. This is an acknowledgement in 2 short sentences of both the accomplishment, the action, the behavior, and the challenges, the double ABC of acknowledgements. I reassure you and assure you that if you made a habit of acknowledging people in this way, by the way, if you just acknowledge accomplishments, that's pretty good. I mean, really, most people ignore that stuff anyway, as Yogi Berra has noticed. If you acknowledge the accomplishments and the actions, wow, man, you're a star. If you acknowledge the accomplishments, the actions, and the behaviors, you are a hero. People will love you. And if you regularly acknowledge accomplishments, actions, behaviors, and challenges, the double ABC approach, people will crawl naked over broken glass for you. And so here's what I'd like you to do in the form of practice right now. I'm going to ask you to write down, first of all, take out a piece of paper and a pen, or type this into your computer if you're so inclined. And in one sentence each, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to first write down a recent accomplishment of yours. Anything at all. It doesn't have to be huge, just something you accomplished that felt good today, for that matter. Pause the recording, write that down, come back when you're done. Welcome back. Second thing I'd like you to do is write down the actions that you did that made it possible. Pause the recording, come back when you're done with that sentence. Thirdly, now write down the behaviors or actions, or the behaviors and strengths that made that possible. So what were the behaviors that you demonstrated that made those actions possible, that made the accomplishments possible? Pause the recording, write that down, come back when you're done. And finally, write down the challenges you overcame to make that possible. The challenges you overcame, the behaviors that you brought to the party, the actions that those led to, and the accomplishment that came as a result. If you've now written down those 4 sentences, read them to yourself. Pause this recording, come back when you're done. All right, welcome back. How did that feel? You see, it's one thing for me to say, hey, you did a great job with your numbers this month. Or to, acknowledge you for having, finished a report on time or delivered, something that was overdue to a customer that was really angry and dealing with it effectively. So, hey, congratulations. I'm glad you got that done. That was a big relief. That's okay. But boy, oh boy, when you follow through with the full double ABC, you will have created a long fuse of real positive reinforcement and knowledge of the other person and both of their strengths and their behaviors that made everything their accomplishments possible. And so here's your homework. I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to do it either now or at the end of this video, and that is to craft a double ABC acknowledgement to a coworker. Write it down and deliver that double ABC now that you've got some practice doing it with an accomplishment of yourself. Here's the second of our agenda topics for today. The first one was the double ABC approach. The second thing I want to talk about is this thing called challenge. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And how true is that? And so I challenge you. How do I challenge you? Hold on a second. What do you even? So when we say I challenge you, what exactly does that mean? How does it look? What form does it take? Well, a challenge looks a little bit like this. A challenge is something where you say to someone to go someplace that I believe you can go. So when I issue a challenge, it's because I'm issuing a challenge for someone to go someplace I believe they can go. But who am I to believe they can go there? I must have seen some evidence, right? Soon to come. The second part of that is that you don't know that they don't know about or seem willing to go. So they may not know about this place that you'd like them to go to, and they may not even, or they may know about it, but just don't really want to go there because of fear, uncertainty, getting out of their comfort zone, or whatever the case might be. So go someplace I believe you can go, such as, for example, more aggressive targets, working more efficiently, effectively, in a more focused fashion, perhaps to accomplish more, to think differently, to be different, and so forth. This is a challenge for them to either be different or do different. And so that's a challenge. So the challenge has those two components. You believe they can get there, otherwise you wouldn't issue it. And secondly, they may not be seeing it and or willing to go there. The second part of this thing is reminding them of their strengths, of what's important to them, and what they want. So it's not enough just to challenge them and to say, I think you should, I challenge you to, make it to that vice president's position. I challenge you to get the learning that's going to help you, get that next big opportunity at your work. It's just because you see it. The second very important step is you got to remind them of why you have, and this is the evidence, why you are in fact challenging them, reminding them of their strengths, reminding them of what's important to them, and reminding them about what they want. And so if you do not know their strengths, if you do not know what's important to them, if you do not know what they want, then you can't issue a challenge because it's just an opinion in that case. And then finally, challenging is not confronting. Is that the best you can do? Ooh, does that sound like a challenge or a threat? Well, that's a confrontation. That's not what a challenge is. And it's not cheerleading. Cheerleading is, you can do it. That's a bunch of encouragement. And you know what? It may feel good in the moment and it sounds enthusiastic, but without proof, without reminding the other party of their strengths, what's important to them, what they want, then it's just cheerleading. And cheerleading has a very, very short fuse. And so the second of our three agenda topics dealt with challenging. And here's the third of our three agenda topics, and it's this thing called feedback. And feedback, I want to talk a little bit about how we wrap the feedback package. So this is one slide on feedback made easy. There's three ways to give feedback. One is the technical feedback, which is essentially comparing what the other person did to whatever job specifications are identified. So if you've got a job specification that suggests that this equipment should be monitored every day by 1 p.m., if they're doing it, then you can give feedback that says you're actually, performing according to the job specifications. Or if they're not performing according to the job specifications. So that's technical feedback, which is comparing actions to specs. The second type of feedback is expectations, very similar to technical feedback, where you're comparing their actions or their behaviors to any stated expectations that you have with the other party. Something that the two of you have agreed on and are expectations that have been made clear, and it's about whether or not they've been able to reach those expectations. But those two are the simple ones, providing technical and expectations-based feedbacks. Here's where it gets really fun and exciting and life-changing, is when you provide impartial feedback. And impartial feedback comes with 4 component elements, and these are the 4. Impartial feedback has absolutely nothing to do with what you judge the other person as being good at. I think you're good at this. I don't think you're capable of that. That's just judgment. Forget it. None of that matters. What really matters is what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, and then what'll work better. And so the last one being, of course, suggestions for improvement. Now, what you saw is strictly observational. This is a question of just purely stating, this is what I saw happening. This is not about, I don't think, I think you're frustrated with all this. How do you know they're frustrated with all this? I am seeing you make faces and getting red in the face when this type of situation happens. That's an observation. I saw that. But for me to say, you're getting frustrated with all this is not what I saw. What I saw was, in fact, a change in color and a facial expression. I may feel like you may be getting frustrated by it, but that's for a later topic called what you felt. Second thing is what you heard. Play it back exactly what you heard. This is a fact-based, observational, and hearing-based feedback that says, here's what I saw, here's what I heard. Now, here's where it starts to get really interesting, is when you tell the other person, here's how I felt when you did these things. When I saw what I saw and I heard what I heard. I felt angry, I felt frustrated, I felt confused. I felt unsure. I felt a little miserable. I felt disappointed. I felt frustrated. I felt whatever. And so, I often get the question asked that says, well, if you're angry and is it okay to tell the other person you're angry at them? Well, why would you hide it if you're angry? You don't have to hit them or anything. Please don't. Physical violence is discouraged. But you certainly want to express in as objective a way possible, in as non-threatening a way possible, how you felt about the situation or what you felt during the situation. And then lastly, what will work better? And so I'll tell you, Bob, if I'm giving you feedback about what I saw, what I heard, what I felt, I think what would be better is that if you tried this approach, I think this is what might happen as a result, and I think that you'd see better results. And those are impartial. That's impartial feedback. What you saw, what you heard, what you felt, and then finally, what will work better. Now, and here's your homework to put this into practice. Craft a feedback package for a coworker. Think about a situation with somebody you work with. It doesn't have to be someone who works for you. It might be a colleague or a coworker, might be your boss. Quite honestly, it could be somebody in your personal lives outside of work. But just in this instance, craft a feedback package. Think about what they did, and, something you'd like to give them some feedback for, and just write down one sentence. What you saw, what you heard, what you felt, and what will work better for you. Do that, and you're in pretty good shape. And here's how you get an A+ on these topics within this particular module of the Power of Acknowledgement. Firstly, deliver one double ABC acknowledgement every day. And if you do one, you'll be able to do two. And if you do two, you'll be able to do three. You get where this is going. But if you do it just once and then forget about it, it's gone. So the only way this is going to happen is if you deliver one, at least, double ABC acknowledgement every day that you think through so that it becomes routine for you. Secondly, challenge one coworker every day using the technique I just showed you. Thirdly, give 3 coworkers impartial feedback each week. They don't have to ask for it. It would be nice if they actually give you permission to do so. So I'd encourage you to ask for permission before giving impartial feedback, so that the other person has an opportunity to say, listen, thanks, but I really don't want to hear what you have to say. And if they don't, then don't tell them what you want to say. And then lastly, any other homework that you wish to inflict upon yourself. And so I'll leave you with this final thought as we deal with this topic of acknowledgement. And it has to do with cameras. And this is a classic old baby that you see here on the image on this particular slide. Life's a camera. You focus on what's important. You capture the good times, that talks about acknowledgement. You develop from the negatives, which comes with the feedback. And when it goes awry, just take another shot. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'm George Anastasopoulos. It was a pleasure having you as part of this video. Good luck. See you next time.